hello, my name is Kira. I don't really have an opening, let's just get into it. I still have Arcane on the brain. It's probably going to be there for a while. I want to talk about Viktor and why I think that he was actually really well written across Season 1 and Season 2 for a really simple reason. Now, I do agree that a lot happened in Season 2 and not all of it was up to par to the writing in Season 1, which just tells us how, really good Season 1 was. But Viktor's arc across both seasons actually carries over really well, and I think is an example of really the exemplary writing that we know that the writers are capable of. So, Viktor is written to be a tragedy. He is introduced as a character already struggling against the odds, and those odds only get worse as the show progresses. When he receives his prognosis, that's a death knell not necessarily for him, but for what he will lose in his attempt to survive. We see in his conversation with Heimerdinger that Viktor is more concerned with his legacy than his life. His contributions will be short-lived. Basically, as someone who has been chronically ill his entire life, Viktor placed everything in creating something that people would remember. This contributes to his pretty reckless nature, something we see when he steals Jace's notes and helps him with X-Tech, with that very quote, "When you're trying to change the world, don't ask for permission." Viktor has to live with that mentality because he has known for practically his entire life that while he might not have a countdown yet, he will have significantly less time to make his mark. Viktor's obsession with the hex core following his diagnosis is not deep down a fight for his life. Notice how when he's listing all the amazing things that combining biology and hextech could do, it's Jace who says it could save Viktor's life. Viktor is more concerned with the impact he can leave behind. This leads him to Singed, who gives Viktor the shimmer, with the warning that love and legacy are the things we leave behind for progress. Except Viktor doesn't just accept that one either, because this guy does not take anything lying down. He does not go quietly into the good night. He says that Jace will understand. And the thing is that Jace represents both love and legacy here. Jace is, from what we're shown, the person Viktor is closest to, but he is also Viktor's partner in Hextech and the one who wants to break the rules, wants to do the impossible, wants to create something amazing along with Viktor. Jace will understand not only because he wants to save Viktor's life, but because he's also the one who gets that need to create lasting change, who was willing to risk it all to create Hextech when Viktor helped him break into Heimerdinger's lab. Even when Jace and Viktor have their argument that really creates that gulf between them for such a long time, where Viktor continues to operate without telling Jace, Viktor is able to augment his leg using the hex core and shimmer, and when he runs for the first time in his life, he's not yelling out of grief. It's defiance and anger and triumph all at once. All this emotion he's had bottled up towards his disability finally cut loose. He does not run like a man who's lost love and legacy, and he does not stop. When he tries again to alter his body without the shimmer, that is such a don't ask for permission moment. It's extremely reckless, and Sky is the one who pays the price for it. And here's where things get more complicated. I've only talked about one side of Viktor as a scientist. While he is concerned with legacy, he also wants to help people. He wants to help the Undercity. Scientists are meant to improve lives. We see that as a child he could not understand Singed's way of treating Rio, and it takes his diagnosis for him to finally get it, why Singed treated Rio that way. It was for progress. But for most of his life, we have to apply that morality that young Viktor showed us and simply age it up a little, make it a little bit more mature. He is an idealist who wants to help Jace realize his dream. His life's ambition is not to be an assistant. Scientists help people. This is one of the first tenets we learn about Viktor and what he believes science should be. Not only is it his way of creating a lasting glory, but it is also meant to do good. It's why he can't believe Heimerdinger wouldn't approve hex tech inventions that could already be helping people. So we get Viktor, who is dying, who is trying to create this legacy, and that ends up killing Sky, sending the two basics of what Viktor wants as a character crashing into each other. Does he want to be remembered, or does he want to risk more lives? In season 1, he decides that he will die unremembered. He asks Jace to destroy the hex core, which will effectively erase Viktor from history, and also destroy the symbol of the wrong he has done. We lost ourselves, lost our dream. In pursuit of great, we failed to do good. Viktor can only see the failure in his career, because he was more focused on legacy than morality. Though never a bad person, obviously, he comes down hard on the idea that he should have been focused on helping people, no matter who remembered him after he died. So the battle for Viktor between his desire to help people and his desire to create a legacy gets settled for season 1. But season 2 doesn't drop the plot. At the point of asking Jace to destroy the hex core, Viktor has accepted death. Instead, after the explosion, he wakes knowing he should be dead. In fact, he was ready for it, but Jace defied the morality Viktor had set up for himself by fusing him with the hex core. He is now one with the thing he views as his wrongness, the thing that led him to value legacy over human life. It's not surprising that he latches on to the memory of Sky, because she is the thing that keeps him grounded in the reality of what terrible things the hex core can do. And indeed, when he leaves Jace, Sky's presence does leave Viktor to the Undercity to healing the people addicted to Shimmer. It's the commune where his desire for legacy comes back into play. Because Viktor is no longer dying, he has time. He can fuse the two things he wants by healing people, and also by becoming a leader to those people. He doesn't simply wander around Zaun healing people as he meets them. Now, would he have been able to remain anonymous? Probably not. But the Viktor who becomes the herald of the commune is very different from the Viktor we saw, who didn't want to go up on stage, didn't want the spotlight. Was he ashamed of his disability? Yes, but Viktor had lots of other isolationist tendencies that he sort of sheds as the herald. We see him pushing boundaries once more, like trying to heal Vander even when Singed warns him against it. This is where Viktor finally starts talking about the glorious evolution, and that is his culmination of legacy and of doing good, because what could be a better way to leave your mark than to reach perfection? Well, we're back at the seesaw. In season 1, when Viktor's experimentation led to disaster, he chose morality over legacy. When Ambessa attacks and Viktor is killed by Jace, effectively ending the experiment of the commune in disaster, he flips the other way. It's something that happened before, just with a different outcome. I mean, geez. He even tries to get Jace to be his partner again because if it worked with Hex Tech, why not this time? This is actually a really good show of how Viktor's actually retreading old grounds. He wants things to be familiar during this pursuit of something most people would consider crazy. So, will Jace agree? Jace should agree. They do the impossible together. But of course, Jace has seen where Viktor's ideology will lead and rejects the offer. And it is after Jace rejects him that Viktor goes through with his final transformation. So we'll never know what might have happened if Jace had said, sure, let's test the boundaries of the hex core I put inside you. If he'd given Viktor something human to hold on to, who knows? But yeah, we get to the proper creation of the Machine Herald and his enforcement of the glorious evolution. Will humanity benefit? Viktor, as the Machine Herald, does seem to understand that he is doing good by stopping conflict, by knowing people's minds, does seem to believe that, they want better lives and that he can deliver those. He has not let go of doing good. His plan is not inherently evil, but what he has let go of are his ideals, particularly the one of having choice. Viktor once told Jace that there is always a choice between doing right and wrong. He was talking about making weapons at the time, but by transforming the people of the commune and later attempting to do so to everyone, Viktor was ignoring their consent, the choice between perfection and carrying on. Personally, I believe Viktor was able to do this without necessarily realizing how hypocritical he was being, because Viktor found freedom in augmenting his leg. Why wouldn't people choose something better? And the people of the commune seemed happy, so he should obviously try to extend his reach and make as many people happy as possible. And the way to make them happy is to make them perfect, because it's only through perfection that we can achieve happiness. He certainly continues to evolve into something less human, stronger, taller, powerful, very different from the character we were introduced to, very far from the little boy who couldn't keep up with a toy boat. Perfection in itself, as the goal of Viktor as the Machine Herald, is a logical sort of solution. It seems too simple because it is. We know that perfection doesn't allow for the sort of diversity that gives us culture and friendship and love. But not only is Viktor not fully human anymore, but his life experiences did not teach him that the things that made him different were worthy. He has always hated his body for betraying him, felt ashamed of his disability to the point that even as a god, he couldn't let go of the imagery of the braces on his body. He felt looked down upon as an outsider with an accent that differentiated him from everyone as well, which I know is part of League Viktor, but his accent translates beautifully into the show as just something else about him that marks him as different. Viktor is an outsider. If we learned about him as a scientist in just one scene, his desire to help people and his desire to make something of himself, we learned just a scene earlier when he talked Jace off the ledge that Viktor sees himself as an outsider in Piltover, despite being probably one of the most intelligent people in there who is able to help the city. The idea of fitting in, of being the same as everyone else, feels much more tempting when your differences have always made life harder. So when already losing his humanity, making humans perfect makes sense for Viktor. And we know from Mage Viktor that Jace meets that Viktor did go on after creating his paradise in the world where he wasn't defeated, chasing perfection, always chasing perfection until he finally found it. But perfection, which should have been the ultimate happiness and the ultimate legacy, just provides nothing. He finds the answer, stops pursuing perfection, and all there is left is solitude. No one to be happy, no one to remember him. Both parts of Viktor, the part that wanted to leave his mark and the part that wanted to make people's lives better, ended up useless. Now, I've said at the beginning that Viktor is written to be a tragedy. Even watching through season 1 of Arcane, it's very difficult to imagine him having a happy ending, especially after Sky dies. Viktor has huge expectations for himself, not only to leave a legacy, but for that legacy to do good. He's an idealist who is also highly ambitious, who isn't afraid to act without asking for permission, and that's a recipe for tragedy right there. But it isn't all a tragedy. Twice, Viktor made a choice between his ideals and leaving his mark. He has traveled both paths in the end. When Jace stops fighting and tries to reach Viktor with his words, he hits upon all the warped ideas of perfection that the Machine Herald holds. there is a beauty in imperfection, so perfection should not be the ultimate goal. And that part that Viktor wanted to fix, his leg, his disease, things that Jace wanted to fix too, all those things that made him an outsider were a part of the whole that Jace admired. He's not saying that he thinks Viktor needed a bad leg, he's saying that that bad leg was part of what made Viktor who he is. And that is certainly the truth about disabilities and differences. They shape who we are because they shape our lives. And of course, this is not enough to actually change Viktor's mind at this point, and it shouldn't have been. He's too far gone. The Machine Herald is just not human enough for those words to be enough to change his mind. However, it is seeing the image of himself as a mage, saying that perfection only has an end to pursuit, only leads to fields of dreamless solitude. That is the destruction of Viktor's ideal of perfection, and it's a message delivered from himself when he might not have listened to anyone else. So, in an instant, from someone he knows is telling the truth, Viktor loses not only his legacy of perfection, but his desire to create happiness. Everything about his glorious evolution withers. And everything we know about Viktor at his core, his desire to be remembered, his desire to do good, disappears as well. And so we see him revert from his godlike form because he no longer believes in the mission that propped up the Machine Herald. He is back to the Viktor we know, who understands that he needs to self-destruct to turn everything right. And the tragedy here is that when he chose the path of legacy, he went too far. There's no turning back from what he has done. There's only the chance to end it. So, in choosing legacy, his legacy will be being remembered as a villain. But the other side of legacy was his ideals, was his love for humanity. And there once was a person who represented both sides of that for him. Jace will understand. If the tragedy of Viktor's story is that his legacy is one of a villain, the hope in his story is that for him, in the end, in the moment that mattered, Jace did understand and was willing to stay with Viktor to finish what they had started together. So, would it have been a happy ending if Viktor's legacy had flourished but he died alone? Or can we live with the tragedy of a sullied memory, knowing that in those last moments, Viktor had someone to hold tight to? Viktor's story works because it balances character traits introduced from the onset. There is Viktor's ambition, his willingness to challenge the world. There is his desire to leave a legacy, and there is his desire to do good. These traits conflict within him and within his storyline, where he is forced to choose certain paths and experience the consequences. However, those core traits never truly leave him and are what make his story a tragedy in the end, even if it's a tragedy tempered by love. While sometimes rushed, when keeping these character traits in mind, Viktor's actions always make sense between Season 1 and Season 2. Though he goes through drastic physical change and even loses some of his humanity, because of those basic facts of who he is, Viktor has a strong sense of character that he can always return to, no matter the alterations to his body. Though Viktor is more complex than just the few things we find out about him of the first few scenes, the fact that he is established so strongly, so early, made him an incredibly stable character who could withstand immense change and be able to bounce back because we, as the audience, know him, unlike other characters who didn't have such a solid foundation. So yes, for me, it is as simple as legacy versus the desire to do good, and how those two desires can shape or send a person down the wrong path entirely. That's my reason I believe Viktor's arc was done so well. It stuck to the path as set out from the beginning. Rushed? Sure. but never jumping the guardrails of those ideas. So while I have my qualms about season 2, Viktor is never one of those. Even if there were changes to the identity of the mage or some season 2 plot lines, they really stuck to the character regardless and made me adore him. Not because he's perfect, certainly, but because even when he turns into the Machine Herald, there is a precious humanity to Viktor. And his desire to be remembered and his desire to do good for other people, even as it seems increasingly impossible due to the limitations of his body and just how far gone he becomes. I think that most of us can sympathize with wanting to be a good person and to be remembered after we're gone. So while other characters in Arcane experience their arcs through changes to their core values, such as Jace and his trait of naivete, Viktor's arc was allowed to change the sort of character he was, from protagonist to tragic figure to villain, because his core values stayed the same. So personally, I love how they handled him. I love him. I love me a sad boy. And I think his writing was really stellar, actually. And I'm excited to see what they do with the characters from the Noxus show, and if they can give me a character I love as much as I love Viktor, no last name. So, anyway, that's it. Again, my name is Kira. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like or, maybe subscribing. And I hope you're doing well wherever and whenever you are. Bye.